Good morning. I wasn't planning on doing a Friday show this week, but there's been some things that have been going on that, oh well, Political Paula could not help herself. I really wasn't going to do too much about the Supreme Court vacancy until I tested the waters a little bit, until I really watched and saw what happened. But sadly, I was not surprised. I was hoping maybe I would be surprised, but I thought this was a great opportunity, especially since some of my younger viewers are home from school and watching this show, and I always try to educate. And this very incident with Justice Kennedy retiring, and now President Trump, a Republican president, is now getting the opportunity to nominate not one, which he already did, but now two Supreme Court justices. Now there are 9 of them. And before Justice Kennedy's retirement, Justice Kennedy was kind of the voice of reason for reasonable people, people who don't think we have the right to make laws that affect women we will never meet, or LGBTQ members of society that just want the rights that all of us have enjoyed for decades, for centuries, the right to marry, to have children, to adopt children, to raise children, to live like real American citizens, which they now can do for now. Women who want the control over their reproductive rights. They want to be able to choose when or if they have children. That choice was safe while Justice Kennedy was part of the court, even though Donald Trump did get to nominate, and it was confirmed, Gorsuch, who was confirmed, is completely on the side of the evangelical Christians who believe that they have the right to force their religious beliefs on the entire American country, on all of us. Something else happened, just today in fact, is that someone talked about this Trump Muslim ban. And it got me to thinking, because I'm also, by the way, reading the book, The Looming Tower. Now, if you have Hulu, it's a series on Hulu, but I don't have Hulu. You all know I already give Xfinity too much of my money. I'm not getting all these extra channels. But I realized it was a book. And oh, is the book fascinating. And it talks about the Muslim religion, the true Muslim religion, and how the fanatics, kind of like our evangelicals in the Christian faith, the fanatics in Muslim changed it to cover women up, to take away women's rights. Before the fanatics, the Islamic fanatics came to power, Muslim women were educated, they taught in schools, they drove cars, they voted in elections, they made household decisions. They were not second-class citizens. But once the fanatics got hold, that's when, of course, America had to get involved, right? Now, this is the irony. So, one of the main problems we have with fanatical Islam that makes women second-class citizens, it's how they treat their women. We don't agree with that. And yet, as I pointed out on Facebook this morning, there are evangelical Christians and some Republican far right-wing Congress people who agree that women should be barefoot and pregnant, they should be housewives, they should be cooking dinner for their husbands every night, they should walk a step behind their husband, they shouldn't argue with their husbands should take care of the finances, should earn the money, should control the money, and control their women. I've had people come up to my husband. I'm serious. This is a true story. Come up to my husband and say, "Did you see what your wife wrote on Facebook yesterday? Did you see her show? You need to control your wife." Quote, true quote, from somewhere in Maryland. A few years ago, they came up to my husband and said, "You need to control your wife." And my husband looked him right in the face and said, "I'm not the boss of her. She's her own woman. She does what she does. If you don't like what she says, don't watch her show. Don't respond to her comments. Don't read what she writes. But she has the right to say whatever she wants on Facebook or anywhere else. I'm not the boss of her. But some fanatical Christians and evangelicals, they do think that the man rules the roost. He's the king of his castle. There are some out there in the evangelical world that believe that if you get married, that the only reason your marriage is valid is in order for you to procreate, to have children. And if you get married and you refuse to procreate, your marriage should be deemed invalid. How do I know this, you ask? Well, because when the gay marriage issue went to the Supreme Court, the 9 justices, when it was sort of evenly split, there were 4 liberals and 4 conservatives, and Justice Kennedy was kind of the swing vote because he could go either way. And the lawyers that were against gay marriage actually argued, talk about redefining marriage. They now say that marriage is the union of a man and a woman for the purpose of procreation, of having babies. And one of the justices, the liberal justices, actually said, oh, so are you telling me that if a 65-year-old woman who's a widow meets a 60-year-old widower and they get married, of course they're not going to have kids, it's physically impossible, that their marriage is now not valid. Basically, what this lawyer was telling the Supreme Court was he was trying to invalidate my marriage. Because my husband and I decided the week we met that we didn't want children, either one of us. So the day we got married by a priest, and the state recognized our marriage, and the federal government recognizes our marriage, and the church recognized our marriage, but we never intended to procreate, so therefore now my marriage is invalid? That's what they were trying to say, and it didn't fly. And now, thank God, gay people can get married, as they should be able to get married, because it's nobody's business to tell anybody who they can fall in love with and who they can marry. It isn't their business. Just like it is nobody's business if a woman chooses to not get pregnant by using birth control or by using her right, her Roe v. Wade from 1974 Supreme Court decision right to terminate her pregnancy. Now, I know that there's a lot of people out there who claim to be pro-life, and I'm saying claim to be because there are people out there who claim to be pro-life. Now, to me, that's a pretty broad statement, right? I mean, pro-life, that means all life, or does it? There are people who are pro-life who go over to Africa and go on safari and shoot fish in a barrel. They shoot beautiful giraffes, protected lions, only for the purpose of bringing their heads home and hanging them on their wall. Look at me, look at the big woman, I shot a giraffe, I'm special. But don't you dare have an abortion, you murdering bitch. These pro-lifers often vote in favor of the death penalty. That means that the government, the state and federal governments, can kill an adult, a living person, a human being, as punishment for a crime they committed. Is that pro-life? Look, this isn't a death penalty discussion, but all I'm saying is how can you be against a woman's right to choose what's happening in her own body by removing cells that you can't even see technically unless you have a super microscope. It's not a girl or a boy. It doesn't have fingers and toes yet at the time of an abortion, at least what I consider what should be legal. I don't believe in partial birth abortion, late-term abortion, unless the mother is in danger. Okay? I'm going to say that right now. So don't start telling me that they're ripping arms out and crushing babies' skulls. There are no skulls in the early stages of pregnancy. I think you learn the sex of the baby at 4 months pregnant. That's 18 weeks. So in the first 2-3 weeks, when that pregnancy test comes up positive, you are not aborting a human being that is actually physically at that time a human being. It will become one in 9 months, possibly in 4 months. I'll give you that. But once again, is that our business? Is it our business to get into another woman's mind, into her medical relationship with her doctor, her priest, her husband, her family, her mirror that she has to look into? Is that really the government's business? I say it's not. Now, if you're a preacher or you go to church, you can preach all you want to your congregants. Abortion is wrong, don't have an abortion. Fine. You can tell your children you're not getting an abortion. Fine. But you can't tell me or somebody you've never met, like me, that I can't have an abortion because the Supreme Court says I can. Now, this is my problem that's going on right now with President Trump appointing 2 Supreme Court justices during his first term in office. That's kind of almost unprecedented. And it is scary. And this is why when you vote for president, this is a lesson to my young viewers. You don't just vote for president or even Congress. You have to remember the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court can change the way we live. In a good way, like they did when they said that gay marriage was legal, that was a good thing. But they can also do bad things, like when they said that the baker in Colorado is allowed to discriminate by refusing to serve gay couples by making them a wedding cake. So they can go either way. When it was announced that Justice Kennedy was retiring, evangelicals and extreme right-wing Christians celebrated all over this country because they were sure that this was their chance, because they've been trying to do it since 1974. They want to make abortion illegal, completely illegal. They want to go back to backroom butchers where doctors are performing abortions illegally in unsanitary conditions, or where women have to self-abort with knitting needles or tossing themselves downstairs, like they used to do before Roe v. Wade made abortion legal and safe. And let's talk about abortion, really. I don't know any woman that has on her bucket list, I want to have an abortion in my lifetime. Can't wait. No. It's a hard decision. It's a terrible decision. Not to mention, it's surgery. I certainly never wanted an abortion, but I slept better at night knowing that it was available to me if my birth control failed. And here's another thing some of these evangelicals don't like. They don't like birth control either. Look at the businesses, the Christian businessmen men who went to the Supreme Court and said, I don't want my employees to have access to birth control on my company health plan. Now you think, oh, they were running a church, they were running a Catholic school or a religious school. Oh no, they were running a craft store. One was operating a lumber shop, Conestoga Wood and Hobby Lobby. But they didn't want their employees, their female employees, to be able to get affordable birth control because they don't believe in it in their church. And the Supreme Court said that was just fine. Bad decision. Huge. Because abortion, by the way, isn't covered under health insurance. So what this ruling actually did for these women who work for these religious bosses who want to force their religion on these women, they just said, okay, fine, if I'm not allowed to use birth control, if I get pregnant, well, I got to pay for an abortion out of pocket anyway. I might as well just save up my money and go get an abortion. And I do know that there are a lot of women, myself included, who slept better at night. Now, I'm in menopause. I said this very proudly. I am so proud and happy and safer being in menopause. I can't get pregnant. But I know and love a lot of women who still can. And who don't want to, by the way. There's a lot of women out there who don't want kids. Yes, it's true, you evangelicals, who think the only reason women exist is to be mommies and to be pregnant all the time, Mrs. and Mr. and Mrs. Duggar and all your children. Yeah. No, a lot of women don't want kids. A lot of men don't want kids either. Men have more of a choice. They can just go get sterilized if they never want to get a woman pregnant. Women, we got to fight a little harder for it. But there are many, many, many reasons why many women sleep better when abortion is legal and safe and available, by the way. Rape victims, number one. Incest victims, little girls who are molested by pedophiles, who are raped, who don't want to give birth to grandpa's baby or Uncle Joe's baby or daddy's baby. Yes, it happens. Fathers rape their daughters, grandpas rape their grandchildren, uncles rape their nieces. It happens. And parents of young girls who have been violated in such a horrific way sleep better at night knowing that they can get their child an abortion. Their child. Because children are not supposed to be birthing children. 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 9-year-olds start menstruating nowadays. Should a 9-year-old be giving birth and raising a child? No, a 9-year-old should be playing with Barbies, playing dress up, getting an education, going to what, 3rd, 4th grade? Yeah. But 9-year-olds get pregnant, usually by force, by forcible rape. 9-year-olds don't go out and choose to have sex. So we need to have legal, safe, available, and yes, rare abortion in our country. But the evangelicals now, they see a light at the end of this horrific tunnel they've been going down for 45 years, since 1974. They think that this new justice that is being nominated by Trump will be the one. And I bet you one of the first cases, if he is confirmed, will be some religious fanatical group bringing a case to try to limit the rights of women to have legal and safe abortions. And again, when we compare that we have gone to wars to protect Muslim women from being treated like women used to be treated in America in the 40s and 50s, and now we want to go and reverse Roe v. Wade. We want to send gays back into their closet. We want to set our rights back, our civil rights, to choose how we live our lives, to choose who we marry, to choose why we marry, and to definitely choose if and when we want to become parents, the most important job any human being will ever have. Raising another human being once they're born. It's important to be a good parent. It's important to want to be a parent. That's why Roe v. Wade is also important. So that people who know they don't want to do it, who are not good at it, who have tried by using birth control and the birth control failed, who have been raped and not on birth control because they weren't having sex with anybody. No one should be forced into the most important job there is in this entire world, is being a parent. The only people who should be parents are people who know that they can do it, who want to do it, and who financially and emotionally can do it. We would have utopia if only those people would procreate, and everybody else would just adopt puppies and be good to their puppies, because many people treat their puppies great, but they're not so good with human children. That's kind of how I roll. I'm really good with puppies, but not so good with children. I'd rather clean up dog shit in the yard than change a diaper. That's just how I roll. Just me. My dog can throw up on me, a baby, not so much. Look, it's not a funny subject. I just wanted to remind all of you that this Supreme Court nomination is very important, and that the next time there's a presidential election, maybe you should all think of something other than just the candidate. A lot of people who don't agree with the evangelicals, a lot of Christians, by the way, who believe that gays should be allowed to marry. A lot of Christians believe that it's every woman's right to choose for herself. It's none of their business if she chooses to have an abortion. There's a lot of Christians out there who believe that. They believe in Roe v. Wade. They believe in the right for gays to marry, and yet they voted for Trump because they hated Hillary, or they were scared that Hillary was a crook. And now we see 5 of Trump's closest people are either in jail or are awaiting sentence for pleading guilty to crimes against our country. That's only in like a year and a half of Trump being president. And these are his right-hand people. And now he is nominating yet a second Supreme Court justice, which could undermine everything that women and the LGBTQ community have fought for decades. The woman who brought the case that got gay marriage passed had lived with her partner since the 1960s, 35 years. And the reason she brought her case was because after living together and accumulating stuff together, when her partner died, she was handed a $300,000 inheritance tax bill because they were not acknowledged as a married couple. And that woman won. She won. And that's what's important. It's nobody's business to define anybody else's relationships. We don't live in it. We're not there. I don't have the right to tell anybody around me who they can marry and what to do with their bodies. I can make suggestions. Don't have kids you can't afford. But just like I can't force someone who shouldn't have children not to, I also don't think it's appropriate for someone to force anybody who doesn't want children, who finds themselves pregnant, to go through with the pregnancy. I don't think that's our business either. So the show's a little long today. I apologize for that, but I think it is, again, very important. We're going to see what happens, and we'll see if that some of my predictions on this show come true. Like, once everything's done with the Supreme Court, we once again have 9 justices. If the first case is about Roe v. Wade and overturning it. I really hope not. Well, luckily it will no longer affect me because I was fortunate. I never needed an abortion because I practiced birth control like it was my religion. Never missed a shot. When I was on the pill, I never missed a pill. But if I needed it, I would have had an abortion and I would never have apologized for it. And I don't think any other woman should have to either. And if we are going to attack Islam for the way that some in that religion treat women, then we better look cold and hard, long and hard, at some of our Christian evangelicals, like the Duggars, who make their women wear long skirts and cover up and obey the men in the family and have baby after baby after baby after baby. We should look long and hard at them as well. Because there are American women right now, American citizens, living in the same kind of circumstances that cause us to question fanatical Islam. Something to think about over your weekend. Have a great one. I'll see you back here on Tuesday. Political Paula is out.